everyone, Samantha McLean from Elite Agent Magazine, and this is it, the last coaching session in PM Transform for 2016. Our teams have learned heaps in the last 9 weeks, and today it's about the very important topic of managing risk and streamlining maintenance in property management. So identifying and managing risk in a property is one of the most important things. Firstly, to keep everybody safe, and secondly, to avoid unnecessary negligence actions. And this is what our friends at PropertySafe are going to help us do. PropertySafe is an inspection and reporting system that can address 120 individual risks that exist around a property, some of which our guys will need to identify in the Amazing Race Challenge. The app in the dashboard by PropertySafe can greatly help you streamline your maintenance activities, saving you heaps of time and of course money. Here's Phil Oakes from PropertySafe to explain more about it.
I've said this so many times and it's so true. From all the industries I've worked in, the property management industry has got to be one of the toughest. It's really, for the property managers, it's such a tough job because there's so much going on, there's so many to answer to. When you look at this little example here, you're a salesperson, you're an educator, an inspector, a debt collector, a counsellor. You really are. You're a financial planner, dispute manager, building expert, legal advisor, IT expert, time management genius, and a confidant. And that's for some. You're probably going to think of another 10 on top of that. But that's really what it is, and there's so many hats. When you're looking at it, you've got all these hats to wear. There's so many stakeholders to deal with and appease. My goodness, I've watched in our system some of the responses back from landlords to PMs and tenants back to PMs. And talk about a thankless job. If you're doing all those things perfectly, you're just doing your job. And so every day it's a really tough thing. So innovation in what you're doing is so crucial to make that easier and actually get better results. And what we're going to get to in a sec is we're going to show how that translates into massive personal benefits, but fantastic financial benefits for the agency as well. So there's so much competition. Compliance is the next one that you've got. In addition to all those things you did previously, now there's new compliance rules. Now as we're going to touch on here, there's the issue that we've got the claims in this industry, legal claims have gone through the roof. 1 in 2,000 claims a decade ago, 1 in 9 agencies getting legal claims now. Really interesting stuff. I was in the States for 4 weeks, 2 weeks ago. I would swear that at least 50% of the ads on TV are about personal injury claims. No win, no fee lawyers. And they're now starting to mention rental properties. Have you been hurt in the rental property? And that's the start of the mandate. I was in Florida. It was starting to come through. And so it's just a really challenging thing from that. So it's these additional things coming on you. You're not a builder. You can't really look after those things. So how do you get around some of those journeys? Challenge the status quo. We're going to get to that one in a sec because that's a massive one we're going through. Look for not only the big bang opportunities, but the 1%ers. John Knight was talking about this. The 1%ers can make a big difference as well. Find these little things, and you're going to see when we talk about it in a sec, maintenance is your biggest cost point in a property management agency. So any efficiency gains you get there reaps you gold. And so you can do these things very quickly. So any change in the right direction, don't put your toe in the water and just test it, commit to the process, commit to what you're going through. Service providers, let me just touch on that very quickly because I'd like to get down to these financials in a sec. Service providers, they've got a duty to provide time-saving, flexible products. They've got to be able to suit your business. You shouldn't have to modify your business to suit them. So it's very important. As service providers, we do that. Let's talk maintenance. So this is the big impact. As we said before, area of massive potential gains and losses in an agency. A normal property manager would say that property maintenance would take up somewhere between 35 to 45, even 50% of their time. In general, it's the least enjoyable, least rewarding portion of their job. It would be the general consensus that I come across. On the risk side, so that's the realities of the job. Wages, again, are the biggest portion of this. So you look at those numbers going in there and they're taking up nearly half your time or your wages expense is being spent on maintenance. So what can we do about that? Risk, 65% of all claims that are coming, these fast-growing claims, are coming from items already known about in the agency. In addition, the courts have established that agents are also responsible for issues that they should have known about, Wu versus Carter. So even if you don't know about it, the courts will deem that you should have known about it. So you need to be aware of it. It's one of the facts. You can't sort of, the head in the sand thing, you can't ignore it, but let's try to deal with that. And it's really the only area in the PM business that touches all stakeholders. So it's the only one that touches the landlord, the tenant, the trades, the PM, and even strata if it's involved. So it's the area that transcends all your business. So that's why it's so important, because it's got a professional level to go through as well. So you need to make sure, are we sending out the same message? Are we dealing with it the same way? Are we doing those things? And also we know that compliance is growing dramatically in this area, so we need to address those things. Generally, our experience would be that maintenance is probably the least efficient and most risky area in an agency. And that's the area that you can make the biggest gains from what we can look at. So let's go to the numbers. So I'm going to follow on a little bit what John Knight did here to give you some idea of some figures looking through. So if we use some of the figures that he gave, so if we assume, say, 5 property managers, we assume average weekly rent of $485, which is the average provided by CoreLogic over the major cities as of February this year. We took a gross comms of 7.5%, and we assume that the average PM has about 2,000 hours a week. So it's about 40 hours times 50, assuming 2,000. If an agency said they spent 40% of their time on maintenance, that breaks down to about 20 hours totally spent on each property per year, and 12 of those hours are spent doing general maintenance, being like maybe the inspections, trying to find new tenants, lease changes over, those various other things, answering the questions, trying to get rental increases. But 8 hours are spent doing maintenance. So we're assuming there's 100 properties, and we're saying the income potential for that agency is about $945,000 of income. If we go through, and if we can get the time on maintenance down to 20%, and we've worked with a lot of offices where we've got that down to well under 20%. So just use 20% as a benchmark. We can show that the hours that are spent on maintenance will drop down to 4 hours per property, and in the final show that for the agency, just by dealing with that, we're not getting rid of any staff, we're not changing anything, the income difference is by getting on new properties. So we're using the same analogy that John used, where you've got the tap, you can adjust it between whether you want to do savings or whether you want to put it into growth. $236,000 of gross revenue increase per year is feasible from that, just by that change. If you want to look at it on a broader perspective, and you start from 45% and go the way down to 25%, you can see, and then you put the potential value on top of that. You know, an agency that's running there at 45%, which is one I'll give you an example about in a sec, 45% of their time was spent in maintenance, and they were able to increase the value of that rent roll by upwards of over $866,000. Massive differences in what we're doing that. There's other benefits that flow through. So just talking to that for a second. We've got an agency that we work very closely with in Melbourne. They're nearly 4,000 properties. They have 26 property managers, and they estimated themselves they were running about 45% of the time doing maintenance. We went down there, we're working with them, we've changed things around. They have now one person doing the maintenance for that whole office. They have one assistant that helps in part-time, but one person doing it, and all the property managers are loving it because they're now spending time out doing the things they enjoy. So their own personal motivation level's now gone up. And so they've not shed staff, but they're trying to grow and using this. But so instead of having, virtually 12 people full-time doing maintenance, they've got that down to 1 by just using really good systems and doing tricks I'll show you about in a sec. But one of the key areas I want to talk about is trades. One of the things that we've seen is that when we've brought officers across, they might have had, for say a 300 property office, they might have brought across hundreds of trades. For an office that size, they really only need 50 trades at best. But I've seen offices where they've got 5 property managers, and every one of those property managers have their own trades. They don't consolidate those trades, so they're not talking, they're not using any efficiencies through that. And they always, the argument is, well, I like John and Sally likes Pete, and so I'll just let them do their own stuff. Imagine if a landlord came to you and said, I've got 4 properties I'm going to give you. But when you've got those 4 properties, you'll deal with me on the first one, my wife on the second one, my son on the third one, and my daughter on the 4th one. It's a nightmare because you're now dealing with all these other people. If I just spoke to one person, you could make this consolidated. Same with trades. If you're dealing with consolidate your trades, deal with that person, your importance to that trade goes dramatically up. So your service levels should go dramatically up. You've got more buying power now. Dashboards. Dashboards are crucial these days to make sure you increase your transparency. Dashboards in any good system should be able to show you all your trades, show you how quickly they respond, how much you spend with them, KPIs should be understood that they're for benchmarking, but also there to help you grow, there to help you identify with your staff where they need additional training, where they need the support. It's not to try to make them look bad or anything like that, but it's just trying to say, hey, let's identify where they can upskill. And our types of KPIs, we try to build them in so they're self-leading. You can see where you are, and then it tells you what you need to do to make it better. You know, for example, this very quickly there, we've got a dashboard of ourselves up there, and it's just showing the key elements, what we believe are the key points in the business to look at, so you can see it in a glance. You know where your dangers are, you know where your risk levels are, you know what you've got to do, and then it's got metrics at the top. So if you've got a green smiley face, you're doing great, and if you don't, then you click on some metrics on the right and it'll tell you address these ones quickly, and you can address your key ones to get yourself back into a positive situation. Very simply done, and once you've gone through that learning period, you know, people just love this stuff, and it's the way they are driving. They're driving by exception, they're driving by control, and they're knowing what they're doing. The same thing with giving management reports back to the management team so they can see it, so they can understand what's going on in their business, how that goes on compared to other businesses, and what they need to, again, help their staff improve and help their bottom line. So the last couple of things here is that efficiencies. Any system should give you an automated trail to protect you and the agency, to show you exactly what's going on, everything from the first bit of communication through to the final job going through. And this gives you the opportunity again to tailor your workload to the personalities of the team. You can really go through that. So the other area that we get to obviously is the risk, as what we were talking about before, the claims that come through and the risk and how we address that. It's a massive growing area and you can't hide from it. You've got to accept that you can't control everything right now, but control what you can. And what we recommend and what most of the large training groups recommend as well is just outsource your hazard identification. Don't try to do it. You can do this now in a way that things have changed over the time frame when we've started to what we're doing now, for example. And you can actually go in there and say, if you do this, you should be able to get a higher rent level. And it goes back again to what John Knight was showing. You know, rent levels is one area to increase. It's like the 1%ers. If you're increasing someone's rent by saying, hey, spend $200 getting this inspection here, we might be able to get you another $5 for your future rents, or we'll have to drop your rent by this much, but $5 of that was saved because you've been doing this, can actually be a good news message to the landlords going through. And it also helps you with that, one of the other areas they talked about was cleansing your rent roll. It's a good time to think about that at the same time. Because, you know, again, is there any value in trying to work with rent rolls whereby you've got people that take up all your time and you know they're a nightmare and that sort of thing? The bottom line with all this is that a risk mitigated rent roll, without any doubt, increases the value of that rent roll. Anyone that's buying something is looking for something that's risk mitigated, and how do I achieve that? So, and if I'm looking for something else, I'll look for whatever the investment is, it to be risk mitigated, and that's the goal for it.